You're going to get knocked down, eliminated, humiliated. MJ went through that. LeBron went through that. All those things is part of being great.
You cannot keep me down. Flex on him, Giannis.
We are built for this. The job is not done.
You cannot keep me
He is Jalen Rose. I am David Jacoby. We are Jalen Jacoby. What is
up,
it
though?
that we do?
We give the people what they want.
We have Game 5 tomorrow night at 9 p.m. in the NBA Finals after Chris Paul was an absolute world beater to close out the Clippers and to dominate significant on the line in Game 5 for Chris Paul.
To whom much is given, much is required. And I appreciate this playoff run validated for so many the all-time greatness of Chris Paul, recognizing him as a terrific leader, playmaker, how he keeps his turnovers down, and how he reinvented himself regardless to where he was playing. New Orleans, the Clippers, Houston, OKC, and now the Phoenix Suns. This year, he was fourth on my MVP ballot. This year, he's led the Phoenix Suns to the NBA Finals. I believe at this point of his career, unlike the NFL, where a 43-year-old Tom Brady can win a Super Bowl with a torn ACL, this is the NBA. And Chris Paul has a lot of great years of playing left, and he deserves to get a big contract this offseason. And at some point, he'll be working here, probably doing this show with you and replacing me, because he's going to be that good at this if he wants to. But unlike Giannis, this is his final best time playing the way he plays with the level of physicality and how the game continues to change, leading a team to the finals as its quote-unquote best player. It took 16 years to get to this point. So what's at stake? Everything. The entire 16 years that he's worked for this opportunity. He's missed shots. His turnovers have been up. Drew Holiday has done an amazing job of locking him down, picking him up three-quarter court. And so now if you're Chris Paul, you return home, you need to embody some of the magic that, as you mentioned, he had in a closeout game versus the Clippers. He had in game 1 in this series. And I think he redeems himself playing in front of his home fans.
Well, a couple things. I believe Tom Brady had torn MCL. Also, you will never be replaced on this program by Chris Paul. Chris Paul is too demanding of a teammate. I don't want to get yelled at. And number 3, I think you touched on it. Like, is he injured, or is it just that Drew Holiday is just putting so much on him defensively? Drew Holiday has defended him really, really well. And another thing is, when you put up his numbers again, when you look at these numbers, the comparison between Game 6 against the Clippers, Game 1 and Game 2 in the finals, and Game 3 and Game 4, look at that bottom line.
I can tell you how I feel.
That's 15 turnovers in 3 games versus 2 turnovers in 2 games. And whether that's an injury or whether that's Drew Holiday, we will find out tomorrow night. But of course,
night and day,
we have to turn our attention to someone who has been even more dominant than Chris Paul in these finals, and that is Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is just absolutely dominant in the restricted area on offense and defense with this huge block to keep the Suns from tying the game in the final seconds of the 4th quarter. Jalen, what do you think about Giannis looking forward to Game 5?
He's putting together an all-time great NBA Finals run if his team goes on to win the championship. They started this series 0-2 as well. And unlike many, I just came on here and said, they're going to go home and win both games. And that's what they did. And so now this is a vastly different series because Giannis has figured out something. Basket or a foul basketball. Layup or dunk basketball. And it helps when you're making your free throws because you're a lot more confident driving. And you're also getting Ayton in foul trouble. And they're dramatically smaller and, frankly, as we know, Kaminsky pun, just not as good. And so you need to keep Ayton on the floor if you're the Phoenix Suns. And if you're Giannis, keep doing what you're doing so you can keep getting what you're getting. Dominance in the restricted area in the paint offensively. It's okay to take 1 or 2 heat check threes. It's okay to take 2 or 3 step back one legs like dirt. But I need to see 90% of his offense going towards the rim. And while we talking about getting Ayton in foul trouble, you know what else Giannis did besides the amazing block at the rim and the steal he got at the beginning of the fourth that led to a breakaway and the run out that a 7-footer did and kicked it over to Pat Connaughton for a 3? He locking down Ayton. In the last couple of series, Ayton, was putting up his offensive numbers. He's still getting his board, and the young fella's progressing. But not getting to the line in particular is something they're going to need for him to do. And I believe, like Chris Paul, he also is going to respond in front of his home fans.
Well, one of the storylines about the Bucks, one of the sort of reputation that the Bucks have earned over the course of the past few seasons is that they don't adjust in series. Well, they have made adjustments. They're taking less Lopez and more Giannis at the 5, so there's more Giannis on Ayton, which I believe has led to his production fall off a little bit because Giannis is just such a menace on the defensive end and the offensive end. Now, Jalen, we also have to talk about what Chris Middleton did in Game 4, because the Bucks offense will go as Chris Middleton goes because Giannis is so consistent and dominant. We kind of expect not much from Jrue Holiday anymore, but Chris Middleton went off in Game 4. Can he stay hot in Game 5?
I believe he can stay hot in Game 5, but the problem is his game hasn't always traveled on the road, and also his productivity is vastly lower when they lose. You mentioned, I know that Giannis is going to bring it every night if he's healthy. He's going to give me 30 plus. He's going to give me the boards. He's going to give me the blocks and the steals. Middleton is definitely the key. And you mentioned their coaching staff and adjustments. For anybody that's paying attention to the Milwaukee Bucks, let me teach you guys something. Here's the number one adjustment that Bud made this year. He put the ball in Middleton's hands in clutch situations. Remember the last couple of years I was like, hey, Jacoby, I don't like Giannis taking these long strides from the three-point line, basically with 4 guys standing at the three-point line or on the baseline trying to have your 7-footer initiate offense constantly for everybody else. That's what's unlocked their attack. That's why they're in the NBA Finals. And so also, when Middleton scores 30 plus, they're 5-0. That's an X factor, sir. If he goes on the road and he gets 30 in Game 5, then the Bucks are gonna win. That's what we're looking at in this series.
And we rightfully have celebrated Giannis for that block and for his play in Game 2, 3, and 4. However, if a couple balls bounced another way and the Suns won Game 4, all we'd be talking about is Devin Booker's bounce-back performance. He had 3 field goals in Game 3, and he was on fire in Game 4. Can he continue that heat into Game 5 and get them a win at home?
Absolutely, and Jay Crossover was on the show earlier this week, and we talked about it. How they're playing at all phases. I told you this so many times off wax, Jacoby. I like watching basketball, and it doesn't look like come across half court and the first person that gets the longest three-point shot shoots it with 20 seconds to go on the clock. They're actually working exhausting possessions. You get one pick and roll. Okay, D-Book's at the top. Guys are cutting. Guys are moving. They're not just perched out there. That's how Middleton is getting his offense. You see how he's navigating, taking his time? That's what D-Book was doing in the mid-range at 3. But here's the problem for the Suns. That's the D-Book of the bubble. And they went 8-0. But they weren't in the finals, and they didn't make the playoffs. And so there has to be a recipe of him getting that level of aggression but still allowing Cam Johnson to get going, Cameron Payne to force the tempo, Jay Crowder to make some shots, feed the big fella Ayton down low. That's what makes the Phoenix Suns the best potential team in the NBA. They do it as a collective. And I looked up at the scoreboard at the end of 3 quarters, basically. D-Book was sitting on 30 plus, and he was the only guy in double figures. And lastly, he had 38 going into the 4th. He got in foul trouble and only scored like 4 more points. So he also, along with Ayton, has to stay out of foul trouble.
That's a good point. Jalen, I cannot wait to see Game 5 tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I also can't wait to see what you wear on Countdown at 8:30 leading up to the game. Right now it is time for Soft Mover Boss Move. Jalen, someone paid $28 million in an auction to go to space with Jeff Bezos. However, said he couldn't make it. Or they couldn't make it. Said they wouldn't be able to make it because they have scheduling conflicts. Soft move or boss move, missing your $28 million flight to space because you've got other things to do.
This is a soft move. Like, it's one thing for the average person to like walk over a penny or feel like you're too big to pick up a quarter. See, I'm the kind of guy that likes momentum. So I'll pick up that quarter and then all of a sudden I fall into $5 and then it becomes $1 million. I'm disappointed that he will waste this kind of money, number one. But number two, they're probably scared, dog. Because in that visual right there, we can go in space as a show, except you're going to represent the both of us because I'm going to stay on the ground.
I think that's important. I hope he gets a rain check. Like, I hope this isn't a non-refundable $28 million ticket because I definitely would be going later. I might go to space one day, but I'm not going to be the first one in space. Like, I need to see that thing go up and down a few times. I need to see that go up and down a few times before you get me in there, and I'm definitely not paying $28 million. I would balk at paying $28 for that. Jalen, we have Bradley Beal. Not eligible to make the trip to Tokyo to play for Team USA. There's some controversy about who should replace him. We've got our suggestions. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss that. You're watching Jalen Jacoby.
We have you covered from all angles. Sports Center on the Road, presented by Rocket Mortgage. Malika Andrews is with the Bucks. Dave McMenamin with the Suns. And our NBA analyst, Richard Jefferson, also on standby. Malika, I want to start with you. How do the Bucks hope to translate their successful homestand to Game 5 in Phoenix?
Well, when you look at what they were able to do, particularly in Game 4, Jay, yeah, Chris Middleton, he went off for 40 points, but also Brook Lopez, Pat Connaughton, and Drew Holiday, along with Giannis Antetokounmpo, they all finished in double figures. That's something that evaded them when they were here in the Valley in Games 1 and 2, is to get multiple guys going. So they're hoping that that momentum, that's what they can take with them into Game 5. So while the rest of the world is still debating where Giannis Antetokounmpo's block falls on the all-time great list, they are focused. They got in here to Phoenix late last night, and they're already kind of shifting, talking about Game 5. Chris Middleton mentioned what you just said, Jay. We know that the home team has been the winners in every game thus far this series, but for the Milwaukee Bucks, they know they need to win a game on the road in order to win this, whether it's Game 5 or Game 7. They're hoping, Chris Middleton told me, that it's going to be Game 5, so they have the opportunity to close out at home in front of their fans in Game 6.
Yeah, those fans would absolutely love that. Malika Andrews, thank you so much. The Bucks will need to bring some of that home magic with them to Phoenix. Milwaukee's lost both road games this series by double digits while committing 23 turnovers over those contests. Overall, the Bucks are 5-6 on the road this postseason compared to 9-1 at home. Hannah.
And now for more on the home team, NBA reporter Dave McMenamin joins us. So the Suns, 17 turnovers in Game 4. Chris Paul had 5 of those, including 2 critical turnovers in the waning moments. So what are the Suns saying they're focusing on as they're headed back home for this game tomorrow night?
Certainly, Hannah. The number 17 spelled doom for the Suns in Game 4 because it wasn't just the turnovers, 17 of those, 17 offensive rebounds they gave up to the Bucks as well. As far as the turnovers go, Monty Williams said it's kind of a blip on the radar, atypical of his team. He trusts that Chris Paul will have a bounce-back game in that category, but it hurt them so much. He said it crushed them in Game 4 because they ended up getting 19 fewer shots than the Bucks did, and when you're shooting 50% as a team, that's like 10 points you're leaving on the board. When it comes to the offensive rebounds, Monty said we got to play with more force and we got to meet them outside of the paint, put a body on a body, and really make sure we guard off all those offensive rebounds opportunities because, again, that's more easy scoring opportunities for the Bucks when, quite frankly, Monty was pleased with the Suns' half-court defense. He felt like they put up a wall with Giannis Antetokounmpo and brought him down from the 40s down to 26 points in Game 4.
And they shot the ball so well, Dave, but they did have 19 fewer shots than the Bucks because of those turnovers and because of giving up so many rebounds. Dave McMenamin, thank you. After his 32-point performance in Game 1, Chris Paul has seen his scoring decrease in every game, going from 23 to 19, all the way down to 10. He's also struggled with his ball handling as of late, accounting for 15 turnovers over the last 3 games, Jay.
Hey, Hannah, let's talk about that with NBA analyst Richard Jefferson. All right, Richard, you heard what Hannah just said. How can Chris Paul bounce back in Game 5?
Well, it's going to take a tremendous effort. And I'll go back one more game because in the closeout game in the Western Conference Finals, he scored 41. So you look at that. It's not just in this series. It's actually been a progression starting back last series. I think Chris Paul has to do what he's always done. Get everybody involved early. And in the fourth quarter, late in the third, early in the fourth, that's when he's at his best, getting to those elbow shots. But the reason why he's at his best is because everyone else is involved. But if he's going to get everybody involved, he's got to cut down the turnovers. But it wasn't just his turnovers. There were 4 Bucks that had 3 or more. Obviously, 5 for Chris Paul was huge. But, for the Phoenix Suns to kind of get their rhythm, Chris Paul has to get back to getting everybody involved. Very clean play, no turnovers. And then in that fourth quarter, that's the elbow shots. That's when he starts knocking down those threes.
Let's talk about Giannis for a sec. He had 26 points, 14 rebounds in Game 4 after back-to-back 40-point games in Games 2 and 3. He also had that game-saving block. What do you want to see from Giannis in Game 5?
Well, it's similar. It's similar to what we're talking about with Chris Paul. I want to see him get his teammates involved. When Chris Middleton plays well, when Drew Holiday plays well, when they get contributions from Connaughton, when they get contributions from Bobby Portis, that's when the Bucks are at their best. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see 40 and 15 from Giannis every single night, but his teammates have to match that level. They can't sit there. They can't watch him. They can't get kind of transfixed. And so if he's going to play at his best, it's because his teammates around him are at their best. Very similar to both players, Chris Paul and himself. They have to raise everyone else's level.
Game 5 tomorrow night. Richard Jefferson, always a pleasure, bro. Thank you.
Thank you.
And ahead on SportsCenter, Zach Lowe examining how Chris Middleton has developed the clutch gene and the cause of CP3's turnover struggles. That's coming up on this SportsCenter.
SportsCenter on the Road is presented by Rock.